Hello and welcome to the Adroit Dojo podcast, episode 14. I am Kareem, and I have a question for you. Do you ever feel irritable or sad after workout? Do you find yourself sore for a whole week after working out? Then this episode is for you, because on this episode I'm going to be talking about under recovery, overtraining, and how to recover. So to start off with, let's talk about what under recovery is. There's a few definitions, but generally it is beginning too vigorous a training session before your body has recovered from the previous training. The best way to understand it is by looking at what some of the symptoms are. One of the big ones is an elevated resting heart rate. You should check this in the mornings, and if it's still elevated, you should cancel that workout and stick to active recovery. And another symptom is mild irritability, although this often points more towards overtraining rather than under recovery. But it is still a symptom. Another one is a general sense of fatigue still. So you'll be, let's say, have a good cardio workout next day. Are you still feeling really drained? Well, you are still under recovered. Abnormally low desire or motivation to exercise. Your workout is subpar due to mental, muscle, or nervous system fatigue, soreness, or stiffness. And finally, another symptom I'll be covering in this episode is feeling weak. Muscles need 1 to 2 days to fully recover. And you also need to be mindful of your nervous system. That also requires time to recover. There's more symptoms out there, but those are the big ones. And I will have links in the description too, so you can go and check out sources to learn more. Now, moving on to overtraining. Let's start off with the definition. When a session has a moderate or greater negative impact on your physical or mental self. So examples of that are being sore for a week straight. Being sore for a day or two, that's pretty normal. It does take about 2 days for your muscles to recover normally. And if you're not facilitating the recovery process, it can take even longer. However, being sore for a week straight, definitely a good sign. You're overtraining. Another is being too sore or tired to engage in normal daily activities. If your workouts are impacting your daily life, you gotta cut that out. Moderate to extreme pain post-exercise. Exercise is supposed to help build you up, so if you're experiencing pain, there's a good chance you may be injured, and hopefully you're not injured. Hopefully it's just overtraining. So time to reduce. If you're training more than 3 hours per training session, you could be overdoing it. At a gym I worked at, some guy talked about how he did cardio for about 8 hours straight. And then he was sore for, basically, I want to say he was out of it for a month. Like, that's nuts. I believe, he was just, symptoms of overtraining. And I think it damaged his immune system to the point he got sick. So on top of his body trying to recover from long-ass cardio, he got sick. So all that compounded. Took a month to recover. So don't suddenly go to an extreme. Periodization exists for a reason. Stick to it. Let's see, more, and speaking of periodization, increasing more than 30% of your training load each week. And that's actually very generous. Most suggest don't go above 10%. And that's what I suggest as well. This particular set I got it from, they say 30. Screw that. If you're just starting out and you acclimated physically and mentally to it, then you can try doing that. Newbie gains for a reason, but once you're past that newbie gain stage, 30% is pretty crazy. Next one is ignoring the training principle of alternating hard and easy training days, or by following 2 hard days with an easy day. This is more about periodization, but basically, a lot of times you want to go hard, easy, something like that. So by going just hard, 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 or hard, hard, easy, it's a really good way to overtrain your body. And the harder you go, the more recovery you need. So unless you're doing PEDs, you really got to dial it back and go for more consistency over intensity. Speaking of periodization again, having no periodization or not sticking to it, and its respective regeneration microcycles after 2 to 3 weeks of training. 2 weeks, I think that's for more intense people. When I program, it's usually 3 weeks of training, then the 4th week is active recovery / So the 4th week is the deload cycle where I actually have them do other things. So let's say you're weight training and you're not like a month or 2 out from your competition. I would say don't even weight train for that week. Go do other things. Go do yoga, cardio, swimming, things that really will help your spine and joints recover. So if you're not doing that, that's a good sign you are no rest days. Again, the harder you train, the more rest and recovery you need. So if you have no rest days, I hope you're on PEDs because your body's going to be feeling it. Higher than normal levels of fatigue and irritability. Limited results from overtraining. This alone doesn't represent you are overtraining. However, it is among the list. So if you're seeing other signs, add this one to it. So it's a good sign. Progress is reversing. So instead of plateauing like the previous one, this one you're actually getting worse and worse. So let's say you run 10 miles a week, and then you start feeling sore, sluggish, tired. Just kind of ignore it. You want to push on. But now all of a sudden you're running 1 or 2 less miles every week. Or let's say you're trying to be a power lifter, you're trying to reach 500 bench press or something. You're at, let's say, 400, and then next week you're at 380, something like that, and it just slowly gets worse. That's a really, really good sign that you need to deload. Another one, and this is important, is increased blood pressure at the at-rest heart rate. Again, take it in the morning usually. If you have an increased heart rate and increased blood pressure, that's a good sign. You need to take it easy. And finally, irregular menstrual cycles or even a missed period or missing periods. If that's happening to you, first, just deload. Take a week off and then keep it light and wait for your next period. And if it's still irregular or missing, definitely see a doctor. And now for another story about overtraining. I usually train by myself after my martial art classes. So all told, it's about roughly 2 hours of cardio. I train a little bit beforehand, mainly warm up, kicks, things like that. Nothing too intense. Then the class, which is an hour. Then I usually train for about half an hour to 45 minutes after class as well. So 2 Mondays ago, I was finally feeling better after some bloating and all that. So, yay, I feel good. Let's really work out. I didn't even go that intense. I spent most of the post-class session just throwing heavy kicks at the bag, just really trying to work on my roundhouse and a few other kicks. But I guess I just went too intense, didn't take enough breaks. So I think that 30-ish minute session, I only took like a cumulative 5 minutes off. And I'm going about 90% to 100% on the heavy bag the whole time. And that wiped me out the next day. And then the next day after that, I have a class again. So as you can see, not the best amount of recovery time. Then after that, I had my nephews and nieces, so I trained them. So again, boom, it hit me hard. Just all this training, and it just all started piling up. So one overtraining session compiled with just not enough recovery time for that training session left me just a wreck for over a week. About a week and a half it took me to really start getting better. So again, kids, it's better to be consistent over having one intense period because, oh boy, you can feel it. And if you have a physical job, it can be even worse. You don't want to be going to work sore. Now that we know some of the symptoms, how can we recover? What is recovery? Recovery is basically taking time off from that activity to let your mind, body recover. So don't forget, the body is more than just the muscles. There's also the other soft tissues such as the fascia, tendons, ligaments, Golgi reflexes. Did I say fascia? I'd say fascia again. It's pretty important. People underestimate the importance of it. And then there's also the nervous system. You don't want to fry your nervous system or overtrain that, which is something I also used to do way back in the day. It's ridiculous. The whole idea of training to failure is a terrible idea. So I'm going to break this down into 3 categories: required, highly recommended, and then recommended. What's required? Absolutely required. You can't get away from this, is sleep and water. If you don't get sleep, you start going crazy. If you don't get water, you die. And if you get some water but not enough water, you'll still have sore muscles, general fatigue, and all the other signs of dehydration. I'm not going to go over that. So those 2, most important. So really try to get at least 7 hours of sleep. A lot of doctors recommend about 8 or 9. And now, highly recommended, active recovery, stretching, proper nutrition, and yoga. And you might be thinking, whoa, nutrition, why isn't that required? Because there's a lot of professionals out there who get away with the shittiest diet. It's crazy. I wish I could do that. So it should be required, but unfortunately, the fact that you can get away with a shit diet means it's not required. It's just highly recommended. So, starting from the top again, active recovery. This is things like taking a walk, going for a light swim, maybe some light biking, just really easy, short duration cardio with stretching and other things. I include things like sauna and foam rolling into my active recovery, and I recommend that for everyone. Also, yoga is great for active recovery. So it's a bit of catch-all term for just doing things to help facilitate your mind-body recovering. So next on the list is, hey, stretching. Yeah, part of the active recovery. It's a big deal. I know as a instructor, I have to pretty much stretch every day. If I don't, I'm feeling it the next class, and it inhibits my ability to perform and instruct. And I definitely can't have that, so I definitely stretch after every workout and on my active recovery days. Proper nutrition. So a lot of times people will think fat, carbs are the enemy. No. Too much fat, bad. Too many carbs, bad. But also, too much protein, bad. So figure out the right amount you need. I think I put that in another podcast. If I did not, it's pretty easy to look up. So good sources of fat is avocado, nuts, and seeds, and eggs. So try to get 2 of those sources in your diet. Just be careful because like just 3 to 4 eggs, for a lot of people that will be past their fat limit. So just be mindful, but don't be afraid of fat, especially those fats, really good for you. And then carbohydrates, again, vegetables should be a huge source of carbs, along with about 2 servings of fruit. And then you can fill in the rest with real good grains such as quinoa. And then protein. I mean, I'm sure you've over-researched protein to death, so I'm not going to go over protein. So proper nutrition, just make sure you're hitting your macros and the micronutrients. Best way to get the micronutrients is the foods I mentioned, and just get a big variety of food and vegetables. And something I did was actually list out like every micronutrient and then list foods that have them in high quantities. And so then I try to get those specific foods in my diet and kind of cycle through the lists. So pork has a lot of vitamins such as the various B's and some other things. So having pork one day will hit a lot of the nutrients. Having a whole egg every day will hit all your essential amino acids, and has good source of protein, good source of fat, and a lot of nutrients. Alright, moving on. Yoga. Again, I usually use that as part of my stretching or active recovery, but some days just my workout will be yoga. It's really good, really important. So keep that in your program. Alright, and now the recommended. So it's not as important as the other 2, but I still recommend it. As I mentioned with the active recovery, swimming, water aerobics during deloads, and just your off days. It's really good. It helps get rid of lactic acid. It helps alleviate the muscles. I'm sure you've learned that the human body doesn't recover well when it becomes sedentary. It's really designed to move. So doing those things will help facilitate your recovery. So sauna and cold baths. Cold baths are useful for... Sauna is good. I like sauna before and after a workout. It's good for lifting, recovery. Cold bath is good for cardio recovery. Cold bath should be about 50 degrees, so don't make it too cold or else it'll just hurt your muscles and nervous system and other soft tissue. And moving on to foam rolling. That's a good way to work the fascia, massage the muscles. And I've heard mixed things about this scientifically, so it's only in recommended, not highly recommended. Some sources say it's really great. Some sources say it's not. It only helps you before a workout. I find it does help a little bit in my recovery, but it's not like a game changer or anything. And finally, walking, because I did not add this to my bullet point with swimming or water aerobics. So that concludes the 3 categories. So just to recap, if you're overtraining, try for less intensity, less weights or reps. A thing you can do is take one workout and spread it over the week into 2 workouts. meaning the total workouts from those 2 days will be the same as the workout you had previously. For an example, let's say Monday I do 10 sets of squats. So instead of that, let's do Monday 5 sets of squats, and then Wednesday or Thursday the next 5. Still 10 sets total, but now you're more consistent. Instead of once a week, it's now twice, but it's the same amount of volume. That will do a lot to A, help you improve, and B, reduce overtraining. If you're under recovering, definitely include active recovery if you haven't already. Just be mindful, active recovery can be a delicate balance, because I've gone for walks where I just walked too long or too far, and it actually made my muscles even more sore. My advice there is just do less more often. And that's kind of the theme for the whole episode. Do less in a session, but do those sessions more often. And especially with active recovery, I say keep the recovery session to 30 minutes or less and do it maybe over the course of the day 3 times or more. You'll have to really understand your own body and figure out your right balance. Everyone's different. And another one is consistency is better than intensity. So worst case, you'll have to just restructure your routine to give yourself more recovery time. Because as I mentioned, muscles can take up to 48 hours under normal circumstances to recover. But if you're going so intense that you're just really damaging your muscles or just not allowing it to recover, either via working or other exercises, then it's going to take longer. And that wraps up the episode on recovery and overtraining and under recovery. I am Kareem, and this is the Adroit Dojo podcast.